Well, hello there again. This is Hiro. What we have here? Well, this will fit into our Goodbye Old Friend series. It's already been purchased, and I need to make it crisp and clean. This one is kind of unique in that it looks good from this side, but let me show you what the profile looks like. You notice the left side, it's absolutely flat. Well, when I was landscaping, there were occasions where there was a very thin planter with a wall or fence and needed something of interest. And so I started making this, over 30 years ago, I guess now. And that's what it was for. There was not a big demand for this, and so that's why it sat around here for so long. Well, finally, a couple came in and they said, wow, this is it. They found, they have a spot that this will go into. It's fairly narrow, but wants something of interest. Okay, now, this is a Japanese boxwood. It's kind of a espalier, but in the very Japanese style. Well, it needs major cleaning, and I was talking about different ways to trim, right? This one, I'm going to take my time instead of doing it in 15 minutes with my electric clipper like I normally do. I'm going to take my time and also thin it out so that it allows for the growing season. Okay, so we're in the third week of February, so it's going to start to warm up and get better color. That slightly discolor is because of the cold. Well, anyway, it'll start to get deep green and get into the growth season. So what I'm going to do is to thin it out. Well, first of all, I'll clean it. So let me go ahead and do the cleaning, and then I'll show you. Now, you don't want me to show you the whole process because this looks like a 2 or 3 year job, 3 hour job, and you don't want to be watching a 3 hour video on how to trim a boxwood. So anyway, I'll show you first of all, I'm going to clean up, and then we'll get to the next stage. Basically, these don't need to be here anymore, right? So I'm gonna take all these off. And no use watching me doing this because it's not that interesting. But it's one of those necessary things I have to do. So I'll go ahead and do it, and then we'll turn the camera back on. Okay, this is what you missed. Me cutting off all those suckers. Well, I'm on the backside right now, so what I thought I'd do is sort of clean up the trunks so that we'll have our individual branches nice and crisp. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. So next thing I'm going to do is, see along this trunk, these that are not branches get cleaned off, so it'll look nice and crisp and clean. That should have been done if I had nothing but time on my hand. So now that it's been sold, I'm going to do it right, the way it should be. So once again, it's not going to be all that exciting, so you'll see after I get that done. Okay, I got this more or less cleaned up on the backside, but I don't want to get too carried away because the most important thing is the visual from the front. So I'm going to turn this around, and maybe this is the last time you'll see the backside. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to turn it around and start to look at the front and get it all nice and crisp. Okay, now I got the front. So this is our branch. But you see all this? This is not helping. If I remove these branches become distinct and it'll look nice and crisp. So that's what I'm going to be doing, is to identify these branches and get rid of the things that will obstruct the view. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do next. See what I did? I just cleaned it up so the branches become more distinct. Now, I'm not going to touch the branches until I get this whole thing done. And then we'll get to the thinning of the branches to allow for the new growth. But that's the final stage. But I'm going to be doing this cleaning along the trunk first. Okay, so hopefully you could see that I made some progress. Got mostly off the trunk so that these branches become more distinct. Now, the final phase is making the branches, or the pads, some people call it, so that there be room for the growth. Okay, typical maintenance could be like this. And you see me do that, and a lot of times I will do that. But what I wanted to do today was to thin this out so that the homeowner can do this in the future and be okay. If you constantly did that, this gets so tight in here that inside gets unhealthy. So today I am taking my time and thinning this all out so that in the future she could do this and be okay for another 2 to 3 years. So basically, we want to keep this outline, but see, what we want to do is to go in and thin it out so we could get sunlight. If you don't, it gets dense in here and the inside start turning brown and unhealthy. So this has to be done every so often. And I figure, well, this is a good time. Well, I would do this every time if I had the time to do it. But once I know that it's going someplace, especially this one's already been sold, I could take the time and do it right. Now, the problem with the head shear is that it have cut leaves. And so the perfect, especially in the bonsai approach, we make sure that we cut and do not leave any leaves that are cut. So you can see what I'm doing, right? And then so open it up so it stays nice and healthy. So it'd be nice and tight and open. And then when probably in another couple months or so, you'll have start to grow and she could get her head shear and shear this. Okay, so that's what I'm planning to do for the rest of this chapter. I'm making slow progress. Yep, this method takes much longer, but it's one of those necessary steps if you want to keep this healthy. A lot of you have hedges, right? Especially boxwood hedges. You should actually be applying this technique every so often. That way you keep it healthy longer. Because every time you just chop the end, it gets longer and longer. It gets too bushy, right? So you got to go in and deep cut so that you can get the sunlight in and then keep that interior healthy so that you could keep the same size. So yeah, it's for Niwaki, but it's basically for anything that you have to trim. Okay, that much on the ground. Less on the tree. Let's go ahead and turn it and see what it looks from the side. From the side, you can see how flat it is. And it was for a specific landscape use. That represents 2.5 feet from the garage door. And quite often, they make these buildings with a wall and 2 and 3 foot planter. And then Well, sometimes it's such an important view, but there's not much planting space. That's why I came up with this Niwaki boxwood. I knew there was a specific need for it, but it took, 20, 30 years for the customer to find me, and this is just one of a kind. So looking from the front, it doesn't look flat, and that was the whole purpose, to fill a space that is narrow with something that's very interesting. And I think I met the criteria, I just didn't have a customer. Well, so this is going to be the goodbye series because it's already been paid for. I just wanted to trim it up. As it starts to grow again, you could do this, but most likely this will be more than enough if you stay on top of it. Right? So today's technique was a little bit harsh. This technique doesn't have to be done very often, every 3 to 5 years, so that you could keep it nice and healthy. So the lady that's going to be doing this pruning, she could have fun pruning, but don't have to commit herself to doing something like this. So hopefully you guys enjoy watching me. Like I was saying, this within about a month or so, it'll be all deep green again. We're still got the frost, but the growing season just right around the corner. So those of you who want to do this, do not do it in the fall. Do it in the spring. Japanese version of the Espy with the Japanese boxwood. So from the front view, it looks nice and full, but like we saw on the side, it is flat. And it will fit into a planter that's between 2 and 3 feet, which has always been a problem with as landscapers, because not many things will grow in that space that has an interesting shape. Okay, so this is Hiro saying goodbye. I'll see you again real soon in another chapter. If you're wondering how old this is, it's minimum of 45 years, but I have the feeling that this was the one that I dug out of the old Brunner estate, so that would make it 80 to 90 years old. But I've been working on it for more than 20. It might be more like 30. I don't remember.